Hi and welcome to this video. And in this video we're going to look again at management style, and this time we're going to look at a theory or an approach that's called management by walking around, or it's sometimes called management by wandering around. This is the same thing, and it's sometimes called MBWA for short. And what I'm going to do to illustrate how management by walking around doesn't work and does work, I'm going to give you two examples of two companies that I've worked in as a trainer. Now, the first company that I'm going to talk about, it's an international company, and it's located in the middle of an international city. And the headquarters are in this city, and the headquarters are a 10-floor office block. Now, the CEO in the company at the time that I worked there, she had a really big office in the corner of one of the corners of the 10th floor. And what she would do every morning was she would drive into the office block, had an underground car park, and she would drive into the car park and she would take her private parking space. And from there, directly in front of the parking space, there was a private elevator that took her up to the 10th floor directly. Now, in this process, she didn't see or she didn't meet any of her employees. And during the day, she tended to stay on the 10th floor and didn't go down to the other floors. And the other employees down on the other floors, they tended not to go up to the 10th floor. So the employees didn't see her very often at all. If they did see her, it tended to be on the press, or it was on TV or something like that. When the employees got instructions, it was because of the size of the company, it had a number of employees, it had a hierarchical structure. The instructions tended to be passed down through the hierarchy. So if the CEO had an instruction, she would pass it down to a director, who would pass it down to a manager, who would pass it down to a junior manager. Now, all in all, looking back, I would say the employees in the company, they found this CEO certainly quite distant and unapproachable. And I would say as well, quite intimidating. So let's look at a very different example. And my next example is in a different kind of company, because it's a medium-sized company with around 600 employees working in the creative industries. Now, the CEO that I knew in this company, he was well respected, and he was well respected in the industry, but he was also well respected by the employees who work for him. And one of the reasons this happened was that he would get up from his working place quite spontaneously at times, and he would just walk around the company. And he wouldn't just walk to the same departments, and he wouldn't just walk to the same people, but he would go along and he would chat to different employees in different departments. He would chat to people not just about work, but he would also chat to people about their personal lives. He tended to get to know the employees. He would call them by their first name, and they would call him by his first name back. And during these chats, he would be very encouraging and he would be very motivating. One of the things that I've seen him do, for example, was when creative people had some kind of block in their work, he would encourage them to get out the office and go and visit an art gallery or go to the cinema for the afternoon. And I've even seen him give people money to do this and take the money from his own pocket. Now, the other thing that was happening when he was going around the company and he was talking to people was that people would chat to him, and he would begin to learn about problems at a very early stage. He began to learn about problems when they were actually quite small problems. And he was able to deal with those problems before those small problems became great big problems. And the other thing I would say is that the other thing that was very remarkable for me was that I was a freelance trainer. I was working on the training floor, and sometimes when he was just wandering around and he saw that I was taking a break and I was in one of the rooms, he would come into the room and he would chat to me. And he, as CEO, he knew who I was, he knew what I was doing in the company, and he was really interested in what I was doing. And he was interested in how his employees were reacting to the training. He would listen to me and he would listen to my suggestions. And the other thing that he always did was he expressed his appreciation. He even said thank you for the work that I was doing. Now, this CEO was practicing management by walking around or management by wandering around. So let's have a look at the key concepts connected with management by walking around. Well, first of all, the manager was visible. Everybody got to see this CEO in the company. He was well respected, and his conversations tended to be in an informal manner, and the whole atmosphere in the company was quite open, and it was very, very relaxed. But the employees still respected the CEO. He encouraged, he motivated, he got lots and lots and lots of information, and he was able to solve problems at a very early stage. He had insight, he was approachable, he adopted two-way communication, so he didn't just talk down to his employees or just give them instructions, but he was having a chat, and he was speaking, and he was listening, and he was able at the same time to express his appreciation of the work that people was doing. As I said before, there was lots of openness and there was lots of inclusivity. He didn't just go around and talk to one or two people in the company, but he made an effort to go and talk to everybody that he could. So where does this management by walking around, where does it come from? Well, it originated in this book, and this is In Search of Excellence. And it was written by two guys, Tom Peters and Robert Waterman, and they were consultants at the McKinsey company, and they'd done a study on what in the States about what makes successful companies successful, and then those ideas and that study were developed into this book. Now, the book was published in 1982. So the question that sometimes comes up, and a question that you might be required to answer, well, is, that's over 40 years ago. Is management by walking around still relevant? Well, I would argue quite strongly, especially if we look at the second example, I would argue, yes, it is still relevant, and it is still applicable, and it still works. And today, when we look at the facts of home working and remote working, and we're doing lots and lots of online meetings, there's no reason why management by wandering around can't be adapted to modern technology. And CEOs, they don't need only to have formal meetings with online meetings, but they can arrange informal chats with their employees. So I would argue very strongly, actually, management by walking around or wandering around is still very relevant and can still be used very successfully today. So that was management by walking around, or management by wandering around, or MBWA. And that's all I wanted to say, and I look forward to seeing and speaking to you in the next video. Bye.